This is another example, in my opinion, of the state making a series of bad and fraudulent decisions and then basically not dealing with the fallout. I think the public is becoming increasingly irritated by the fact that the government appears to be incapable of, first of all, making good decisions, and secondly, cleaning up the mess that it creates, which it gives itself the job of doing. I mean, this is a shocking abuse of honest, decent people, and that cannot be allowed to happen.
Stay with me, because the full video I'm about to show you puts everything into a new perspective. Now, if you've ever sat through a parliamentary committee hearing and thought this is basically a very boring episode of a crime drama where everyone speaks in acronyms and nobody goes to prison, then buckle up, because what you're about to watch is something a little bit different. Because every now and then, in the grand theatre of British democracy, someone walks into one of those wood-panelled rooms, sits down and just absolutely refuses to play along. No diplomatic shuffling, no careful non-answer dressed up in reassuring language, just a bloke who's done his homework, looked the civil servants dead in the eye and essentially said, "I think you lot committed fraud on a massive scale, and I'd like to talk about that, if you don't mind." That bloke is Rupert Lowe, and this is one of those clips. Real quick before we roll the footage, if you're enjoying this content, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and smash subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. Don't be one of them. It's free for you and it helps us out more than you know. Already clicked? You're awesome. Let's get into the video.
Rupert Lowe, please.
Yes, I've studied this post office situation in quite some depth. Indeed, I've written articles about it. I couldn't disagree with both of you more. I think this is a massive state fraud. The knowledge of the flaw within the software, in the Fujitsu written software, was known for a long time, and it was covered up. So at the end of the day, this is another example, in my opinion, of the state making a series of bad and fraudulent decisions and then basically not dealing with the fallout from it, either in a timely way or an efficient way. And I think the public is becoming increasingly irritated by the fact that the government appears to be incapable of, first of all, making good decisions, and secondly, cleaning up the mess that it creates, which it gives itself the job of doing. So I'm sorry, I mean, you can give as much verbal baby food waffle as you want, but the fact is we need to get this right.
I think we've got the point, absolutely. Gareth and Carl, do you want to...
May I come back in on that one? I mean, I think we should be judged on our results and how much has been paid out at this point. If the committee is looking at where we have got to with the different schemes, we have paid out over 1.5 billion to 12,600 claimants. There are definitely lessons to learn, and we're here to talk about that today, about what we've done, and we've tried to apply them in later schemes. But fundamentally, I think we are in a place where 80% of the claimants have had the money, and we should be through a lot of them by the end of this calendar year.
You say the information wasn't there. Well, it was apparently there to prosecute people. So at the end of the day, when I talk about fraud, people knew this software was deficient. That has actually been proven. We know that. People have admitted it. People have apologised for it. So, look, I mean, this is a shocking abuse of honest, decent people, and that cannot be allowed to happen.
If an individual comes forward to us, we go to the post office, they access the records, and for most years they still have that information. They didn't have it in an aggregated form, but we can get justice for the individual people.
I don't know for sure, but all these things are shrouded in so much need to know, can't tell, lack of transparency, time lapsing, so nobody actually knows where the truth lies. I mean, it's a case of, you know,
I don't want to pursue this too much because we've got a lot to cover today, but I just do think that Rupert's made a really good point, and if the inquiry doesn't cover it, I think you should have forensic accountants looking at that, because if it was siphoned off the other part of the two-part balance sheet into profit and loss, and therefore into people's pockets in bonuses and so on, that is disgraceful.
If it will have shown up somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, we need to get that investigated.
Back to the point, if I could, Chair. That.
So here's the scene. We're at a parliamentary committee hearing into the Post Office Horizon scandal, which, if you're somehow not familiar with it, is one of the most jaw-dropping miscarriages of justice in modern British history. Sub-postmasters across the country were prosecuted, bankrupted, imprisoned, and in some cases driven to take their own lives, all because of a catastrophically faulty IT system called Horizon, built by Fujitsu, which was incorrectly showing financial shortfalls in their accounts. And rather than anyone at the post office saying, "Hang on, perhaps the computer is wrong," they just kept prosecuting people for years, knowing, it has since emerged, that the software had serious flaws. So, into this committee hearing walks Rupert Lowe, who has, by his own admission, studied this situation in quite some depth and written articles about it, which, in parliamentary terms, is essentially arriving to a knife fight, having already sharpened both knives and read a book about metallurgy. He is not here to exchange pleasantries, he is not here for the verbal equivalent of a firm handshake and a promise to do better. He is here to say, and I'm paraphrasing only slightly, that this was a massive state fraud, that knowledge of the software flaw was known and covered up, and that the whole sorry episode represents yet another example of the state making catastrophically bad decisions and then spectacularly failing to clean up the mess in anything resembling a timely or competent fashion. The civil servants in the room, to their credit, do their best. They deploy the full toolkit: measured tones, careful statistics, the soothing balm of bureaucratic reassurance. Over 1.5 billion paid out, 12,600 claimants, 80% of people have received their money, progress is being made, lessons are being learnt, if you could just appreciate the complexity of the situation. And Lowe, not remotely interested in any of this, essentially replies, "Yes, but you say the information wasn't there, and yet somehow it was available enough to prosecute people with it." Which is, when you think about it, a rather devastating point, because it rather gives the game away, doesn't it? You can't simultaneously claim you didn't have the data and also use the data to destroy people's lives in criminal courts. That's not complexity, that's a contradiction. What makes this clip so compelling, beyond the obvious drama of it, is that it captures something that a lot of people feel very deeply about this scandal, which is that the human cost was not an accident, not an oversight, not the unfortunate byproduct of a complicated system. It was the result of decisions made by people who, at some level, knew. And the question hanging over the whole inquiry, the question Lowe is essentially demanding an answer to, is whether anyone is ever actually going to be held accountable for that, or whether, as tends to happen, the inquiry will conclude, the report will be published, everyone will express deep regret, and then absolutely nothing will happen to anybody. There's a moment in the clip where another committee member chips in to say that if money was siphoned from one part of a balance sheet into profit and loss, and therefore into people's pockets as bonuses, while sub-postmasters were being prosecuted for shortfalls that were essentially fictitious, then that is disgraceful. And you can almost hear the room absorbing the full weight of what that would mean if it turned out to be true. That's the thing about this scandal. Every time you think you've understood quite how bad it was, you pull back another layer and find something worse underneath. And the civil servants sitting across from Rupert Lowe in that committee room, however polished their answers, cannot entirely hide the fact that they know it too.